Hello, Tampa Bay fans. You're listening to The William Haynes Show, your online radio home for Tampa Bay sports talk and Rays postgame shows. Stay tuned throughout baseball season for live coverage after most Rays games with comprehensive coverage of all 162 games from April through October. Got something to say? We'd love to hear it. Give us a call, internationally toll-free. 877-566-1020 or send us a tweet at WHBC Official. Don't go anywhere. Tonight's program will be starting in just a couple of minutes.
HBC, you get a contract extension. You get a contract extension. Everybody on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers gets a contract extension. It is a good evening to you. It's how you be. William Haynes here, you there. Here on this Wednesday, St. Patrick's Day night at 9:08 over on the East Coast. The William Haynes Show, as always, is live from the WHBC studio in Tallahassee, Florida. A big show in the works here tonight. We have a lot of Bucs contract extensions to talk about, as that's what I led off the show with. We also have some rule changes in baseball that will be taking effect this season in the minor leagues, and talk about the ramifications that holds, of course, to Major League Baseball in the coming seasons. And then, of course, we have over a week plus of Rays spring training exhibition games to discuss. As some of you may know, if you follow us on Twitter at WHBC Official, it's been, to say the least, a tough time trying to get a show on the air this week. Originally scheduled for Monday night, and I was about 30 minutes into the program at that point when I had someone reach out and say that there was a technical difficulty. Basically, the microphone was cutting out, and I was able to get the issue resolved. But at that point, I said, let me just do this tomorrow, a clean slate, and then was not able to get that in last night. So here we are on this Wednesday night doing a program that was intended to be on Monday night. And for those of the listeners out there that stuck with me, obviously, I know through all the delays and things like that on Twitter that we're waiting for a show. Just want to thank you for your patience and for your continued support. Certainly look forward to getting this Rays season underway. Obviously, it's going to be a lot easier to keep a schedule because basically we'll be on the air nearly after every Rays game within about 15 or 30 minutes of the final out, to give each and every one of you some extensive Rays post-game coverage, because that's what the show was last year, and I thoroughly enjoyed doing that. So, of course, bringing it back this year. So right now, talking spring training, and just to pull back the curtain, looking to next week. Essentially, next week is really the last full week of spring training. The following week, they'll play Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, have the off day Wednesday, and then going down to Miami that Thursday, April 1st, for opening day. So as we're getting closer, it kind of snuck up on me, and I'm sure some of you as well, just because of how I think really this is just how baseball works. The short off season, spring training starts, you don't really pay a whole lot of attention because guys aren't really playing, and then all of a sudden, it's 2 weeks, and then we have opening day. So I had said that I wanted to do some preview shows for the American League East specifically, and then also take a step back and just preview the MLB season as a whole, do some win over under totals as I did prior to last season, because I thought that was a good thing and enjoyed doing that. So want to bring that back. So I think right now we'll be on next Tuesday, and then maybe, Wednesday and Thursday perhaps, or something along those lines. But definitely stay tuned to the Twitter at WHBC Official for all updates on there. I have a little bit of a rundown to go through, talking about the Bucs and then the rule changes in baseball, and then after that, the 9 or 10 Ray spring training games to discuss. But really, if you have any thoughts that you want to discuss, whether it's the Rays, the Bucs, even the Tampa Bay Lightning, I know they had a win in a shootout over the Dallas Stars, and now they're once again tied for first place in the Central Division, and of course primed for playoff positioning. Anything like that you want to discuss, you can call the show. We have a line open internationally, toll free at 877-566-1020. Taking your phone calls for about an hour or so here on this Wednesday night, this St. Patrick's Day night. Hope each and every one of you listening had a fantastic day. I know it is a bit weird when those holidays sneak up on us in the middle of during the work week, but nevertheless, getting into now the rundown with the Bucs extensions, a little bit out of order in terms of how these deals took place, but I think you really have to start March 12th, which was last Friday. Tom Brady signing a quote 4-year contract, end quote. Essentially, he's going to have it's basically a 1-year contract extension. Obviously, in March of 2020, he signed a 2-year deal that would basically have him in a Bucs uniform through the 2020 and 2021 season. So this basically, in effect, just tacks on an extra year in 2022. But if you've been following NFL free agency, I know it opened this afternoon officially, and all the spending sprees that some teams have been on. Really have not heard a lot of talk of this before this year, and certainly now this year because of the lowered salary cap, because of how we know. With the revenue, how the salary cap is basically proportional to the revenue that the NFL brings in, and with COVID-19 and not as many fans in attendance, of course, the revenue is going to be down a little bit. So all these teams, they have these contracts that they signed to players 3-4 years ago. They sign these deals expecting the salary cap to continue to go up and up, and in a normal world, their assumption would be correct. Basically, the salary cap has gone up every year with a couple of caveats. But now with the cap going down, there's kind of some craziness as far as there's teams like the Tennessee Titans, the New Orleans Saints, who are having to cut good players that they probably would have liked to keep just because they will not be able to fit their roster under the salary cap. So, and this was especially a big deal with the Buccaneers. They had all these pending free agents: Levante David, Chris Godwin, Shaquille Barrett, Rob Gronkowski, and then also Ndamukong Suh, Antonio Brown, the kicker Ryan Suckup, Lenny Fournette, among others, Kevin Minter, all those guys, and basically there was a couple of players in there like Chris Godwin who was due for much more money than they'd been making previously. So how are we going to be able to fit all these guys under the salary cap? We know during the Super Bowl parade for the Buccaneers, Bruce Arians saying, you're not going anywhere. We're keeping the band back together as we go for two, as that's what he called it, going for the back-to-back Super Bowl victories. But in order to do that, really, you're going to have to do some clever maneuvering. So Tom Brady signing this 4-year contract, he's really not going to play, at least on that contract, after 2022. But when you add on all those extra years, what are called ghost years or voidable years, this basically allows NFL teams to move guaranteed salary into future years so they don't count as much against the cap in 2021 and beyond. So before he signed this, I guess the Bucs were $7.7 million over the $182.5 million cap. So they were going to have to do some major maneuvering. And Tom Brady signing this deal allows them to save $19 million against the cap, because he was due, I think, $25 million a year. So I imagine he's counting a lot less against the cap this year, and moving that guaranteed money and that signing bonuses over into those voidable years that he's not going to play under that contract, but that's when he's going to get the majority, basically, of the money that he signed for. And then moving back to that Tuesday, March the 9th, they made a couple of transactions. Lavonte David signing a 2-year, $25 million deal, $20 million of which was guaranteed. This deal includes 3 additional voidable years. He'll only count $3.5 million against the cap in 2021. So although he's making 12.5 basically each year, he's only going to count 3.5 this year. Because of all those voidable years that the guaranteed money essentially is going to be pushed off to. He turned 31 years old this January, and really has been a fantastic Buck. I think one of the better Buccaneers of all time. At least I would say that. Maybe a little bit of the recency bias and those things. But drafted in 2012, I believe a 3rd-round pick out of Nebraska, and he was fantastic right out of the gate. 2012 through 14, I think, he really hit the ground running, and he's been good ever since then. You look at Pro Football Focus or any of those NFL metric sites, they all pretty much have Lavonte David ranked as the number 1 coverage linebacker in the NFL. But he's also very good on the blitz. He's picked up sacks in key moments. And I would say, pound for pound, he is one of the better tacklers in the NFL. Just see him go sideline to sideline. I know it's kind of a big, I guess, comparison to make, but even the Bucs made it themselves on one of the articles they had on Buccaneers.com. But basically, that Lavonte David, has become the next Derrick Brooks, just with everything he's been able to do, and it really makes sense. The coverage linebacker that can take the middle of the field, obviously no longer running the Tampa 2 defense, but that rangy linebacker that can cover sideline to sideline, a terrific tackler, can also blitz occasionally, and has also served as a leader. Devin White, who is going to basically become a franchise cornerstone, hopefully as long as we can keep him under contract, has talked at length about how much Lavonte David has been able to facilitate his growth, and what better guy to learn from than Lavonte David. And Devin White really is just another Lavonte David, a guy who's a great coverage linebacker, who can tackle great, has tremendous speed, can cover from sideline to sideline. So to keep Lavonte David with this team for at least another 2 years, I guess that the end of that contract will put him through his age 33 season. So at that point, he'll be a little bit older, and you can make that decision from there if you want to keep him, and if so, at how much money. But the fact that they were able to keep him at all, I thought was a big deal. And the fact that out of Lavonte David, Chris Godwin, Shaquille Barrett, I think best case scenario going into this whole thing, people were thinking maybe you could keep 2. Maybe you only keep 1 if they really want to go for some money. Now that you're able to retain all 3 is really quite remarkable. And there's been articles in the Tampa Bay Times, and I thought a great one was with Shaq Barrett. Basically, he was part of that 2015 Super Bowl champion Denver Broncos team, and he talked about after that Super Bowl how a lot of guys left. I know Malik Jackson was one, and I'm sure that there's plenty of others that left basically right after that because they wanted their payday, and the Broncos were not able to pay all those players. And Shaq Barrett just said that that's not how he wanted to do things this time around, and he ends up re-signing with the Bucs. And Drew Rosenhaus was on the herd with Colin Cowherd today, and Shaq Barrett being one of his clients, Rob Gronkowski another. He just flat out said that both of those players took less money to stay with the Buccaneers, that they had been offered more money by other teams. But I think Rob Gronkowski, the more obvious one to stay, he's never played with anyone basically but Tom Brady. And that certainly was not going to change now. But basically that, I think Tom Brady is the man to thank. But this culture of winning that they have created in Tampa Bay in just one season, that all these guys want to take pay cuts and be selfless and to be part of a greater whole, rather than the individual, I think is a really cool thing to see, and something Bucs fans have been waiting to come together for quite some time. So also on that last Tuesday, Chris Godwin was franchise tagged. Basically, it's a 1-year contract that will pay him $16.5 million. I believe they can still sign him to a contract long term if they want to, but I would imagine with the cap situation and how many guys that they have voidable years, pushing money off into the future, I think they're just going to have Godwin play under the tag in 2021 and then go from there, because if Mike Evans shows some regression, maybe they move on from him, because I know he's getting a lot of money and things like that. Who knows where they'll go in the draft as far as position-wise. So they give Chris Godwin the tag. Again, he'll make $16.5 million this year. And then moving ahead to this Monday, which was obviously just a couple of days ago, Shaquille Barrett signs a 4-year, $72 million contract. So he finally got his payday. He was an undrafted free agent out of Colorado State in 2014, and I believe I think he got $5 million or so his first year as a Buck in 2019 when he had those 19.5 sacks. At that point, he had I think only had like $6 or $7 million in career earnings, and then playing under the franchise tag in 2020. So he was really looking to cash in for that long-term extension, and I think most of us were thinking that was going to come elsewhere, whether in Denver or somewhere else, maybe making his return there. But he takes a little bit less money to stay with the Bucs. Out of that $72 million over the 4 years, 36 is guaranteed. He's going to average about 17, 18 million per season, and can earn some additional money in incentives, which is another way to kind of maneuver some money. Although with the 17 million, average annual value as is used in baseball and hockey, he's only going to count 6 million against the cap in 2021. That basically $19 million signing bonus is going to be spread over 5 years, with a voidable 5th year, basically in that contract. So again, maneuvering more money to the back end of the contract. Don't really have to explain this in too much depth, but basically with more fans back in the stands in 2021 and also some new TV deals that have signed, I believe Fox and ESPN have basically doubled the amount of money that they were paying to cover NFL games, with the salary cap again being right alongside the revenue that it's bringing in. Obviously, the cap is going to go up in 2022, 23, and beyond, especially as the escalators hit on those TV deals. Then you really start getting into the revenue, and then maybe in 2022 we're back to 100% capacity and regular kind of stuff. So. And again, also there's now I think the NFL is moving towards a 17-game season and all that stuff. So with the salary cap going up in years to come, they'll be fine moving a lot of money to those avoidable years. But again, that's a lot of money that they're basically just pushing off to deal with in the future. Later that day, Monday, Rob Gronkowski signed a 1-year, $8 million contract. With, I guess, can go up to $10 million depending on incentives, but it's a base $8 million deal. The Bucs entered Monday with $14 million in cap, and they spent 14 of which. So basically now they're at, they're right at the salary cap. They don't really have any more money to spend on players, and this is notable because Ndamukong Suh, Antonio Brown, Ryan Suckup, Leonard Fournette are all unsigned. I think Ndamukong Suh, if he wants to take a big pay cut and he's going to be negotiating his own salary, it looks like this time around, if he still decides he wants to continue playing, I don't know how much we could afford to give him. And again, with the draft coming up as well, that's salary that's going to count against the cap. There's more maneuvering the Bucs are going to have to do, so I'm not sure that they're even going to be able to bring in or bring back some of these players. Antonio Brown, I think you just let walk. I mean, he's going to be getting 10 to 15 million. You would assume early 30s, but he showed that he can still be that guy. But obviously, the Bucs with an embarrassment of riches at the skilled position, offensive weapons. You got all the tight ends. Even I think really they had receivers. Scotty Miller really was just as good as Antonio Brown, and you're getting Miller for a lot less. So Antonio Brown will walk. I think it's important to keep the kicker Ryan Succop. Obviously, Bucs fans know how bad the kicker position has been the last handful of seasons. So to get Succop back with the team, I think would be a big deal. And Leonard Fournette, again, if he wants to take a sizable pay cut to return, I know the Bucs would be more than happy to have him back, but Ronald Jones is really the guy that they see as a running back of the future. He's a lot, or maybe not a lot younger, but less tread on the tires, certainly, because Jacksonville really ran Fournette hard. But, of course, in the playoffs, it was obvious that Fournette still had a lot left in the tank. So I think he could get some good value and maybe some more playing time elsewhere. So keeping him in a Bucs uniform is going to be something that's difficult to do. But keep in mind, if he does leave, they've got Ronald Jones. They've got Keyshawn Vaughn, who a lot of people are high on. And they could always draft another running back as well. Running back is not a position that you really want to be paying long term. Really, that rookie contract is the best that player is going to be, and it kind of goes downhill from there. I know the Cowboys are dealing with that issue with Ezekiel Elliott right now, so definitely don't want to put yourself in that position. So out of those players, definitely Succop. They'll be able to keep, not a lot, $3 to $5 million for next year, and then Ndamukong Suh as a maybe. They've got so many good edge rushers and Vita Vea as a plug up the middle, so I really don't think Ndamukong Suh is a must. The fact that they were able to keep David, Godwin, and Barrett, I think we're already kind of playing with house money, so Suh, I think, will either end up going elsewhere or potentially retiring, and that's how the roster will shake out. I think they're going to be the favorites to win the Super Bowl next year. I think they'll be an even better team. Could be looking at some home playoff games if they're able to win the division, which certainly they should be able to do. Just to touch on a division rival, the Saints, they re-signed Taysom Hill, and they also re-signed Jameis Winston to a former Buccaneer to a 1-year, $12 million contract. It looks like Sean Payton is going to let them compete for the starting job. Taysom Hill would probably have the edge. Of course, last season when Breeze was out with an injury, Taysom Hill really was the only out of the two to get a real chance to play. I think Winston had 12 dropbacks in a game against the 49ers, and that was it. So, but obviously you're not going to pay Jameis Winston $12 million to sit on the bench all season. That's not something NFL teams typically do. So I think Taysom Hill may get the edge to start the year, but I think they'll find that they're going to need a more traditional passer to move their offense, and with all the money they're paying Hill, getting some value, I think he's better fit as basically just an all-around weapon. We've seen how good he's been, whether at running back or tight end, or he's even good on special teams as a return man or as a tackler. So he'll still be on the team, but maybe not at the quarterback position. And of course, you don't really want your starting quarterback doing all those things as well. So I think that just kind of gives the inside track maybe to Winston, but we'll have to see on that. But either way, I think the Bucs really have the best chance to win that division next year, which is going to be so important, especially with fans returning to stands to get those home playoff games. So that's where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers stand. With that, we are going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some rule changes in minor league baseball that may or may not soon be coming to the majors. And then after that, we'll be talking about some Rays spring training and maybe how the roster will look on opening day with Brett Phillips and potentially G-Man Choi spending some time on the injured list. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hey Rays fans, William will be right back. We're in a commercial break, so don't touch that dial. Remember, you can call us internationally toll-free at 877-566-1020 or tweet us your thoughts at WHBC Official. Also, we'd like you to stay tuned for William's other podcasting projects at speaker.com/user/WHBC.
HBC. And at 9:31, we are back on the William Haynes Show. One thing that I did miss talking about the Buccaneers, and a point I did want to make about Shaquille Barrett, I did touch on it a little bit, but just that he played under the franchise tag in 2019, and it was clear he wasn't exactly happy about it. There was also an issue as far as, if you're not aware with how the franchise tag works, basically you're paid whatever position you're tagged for, whether it's defensive lineman, outside linebacker, whatever. I guess you're paid the top going rate for that position, and I believe the Bucs had tagged him as an outside linebacker, which did not receive as much money as a defensive end pass rusher would have received. So it was like $1.4 million less that Barrett received in 2019, or in 2020 rather. And he filed a grievance with the NFL Players Association, and that was a whole thing. And it kind of just seemed like there was not necessarily bad blood, but just a little bit of tension in that. If he was already having an issue with playing under the tag in 2020, there was obviously going to be an issue tagging him again in 2021, which I think led ultimately to Chris Godwin getting the tag this year and Shaquille Barrett getting the 4-year, $72 million extension. And something that came to light recently in the Tampa Bay Times, something that I had alluded to previously but had not really been confirmed, but the Bucs general manager, Jason Licht, he'd given Barrett his word that they were going to do their best to give him a long-term extension, and I think it didn't say it in the article, and no one said it, but this is just me talking. I think there could have been a potential holdout situation, something along those lines, if the Bucs had decided to tag Barrett again. So I think really ended up being good business, and really it was Tom Brady restructuring his contract that allowed all this to happen, but that they were able to give Barrett that long-term deal that he was looking for. About the deal, Shaquille Barrett said it was a good sign. It was a sign of good faith on both sides. We didn't want to have to go through the grievance, so we were able to settle on a good number. That was about basically, I guess the Bucs had just admitted, okay, we kind of did screw you on the $1.4 million. We're just going to give it to you. And I guess the NFL Players Association could have made the Bucs pay him that anyway. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds there, but I think that the bottom line is it's important that Barrett is happy. He said that he likes the way that they're doing things in Tampa and keeping the band together. So all in all, a really good week to be a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. Now we are moving to some minor league baseball rule changes. This came out about a week or two ago. Now that the MLB has basically taken full control of minor league baseball. Before, they were kind of two separate entities. They operated alongside each other, of course. The minor leagues were affiliated with their major league club and, of course, developed the players and such. But as far as facilities and things went, each team had their own owners and they could make their own decisions in that regard. And for anyone who follows that sort of thing closely, a lot was made of Rob Manfred and basically the Major League Baseball head office in New York. Their I guess decision to basically take over minor league baseball and have more control over how things are run. And I think they probably could have done this anyway, but I think owning basically minor league baseball allowed them to have more freedom as far as experimenting with some rule changes and things like that. And there are going to be several rule changes, basically one each implemented at each level from low A ball to triple A ball, and there is their partnership with the Atlantic League. There's going to be some rule changes in there as well. So I just wanted to run through them because I think it is a really big deal, because this could affect how Major League Baseball will be played in years to come. And I think a lot of these rules, not necessarily targeted at the Rays, but I think would impact the Rays more than a lot of other teams. At the AAA level, the bases, the first, second, and third base bag, not home plate, will be changed from 15 to 18 square inches. So basically you're adding 3 square inches on the bags, making them bigger. This is basically, I guess, MLB's explanation. They're trying to reduce player injuries and collisions. We've seen, from a guy running from first to second, sliding in early, just trying to take out the legs of the second baseman or what have you, or a lot of kind of bang plays where you're stealing a second and the throw from the catcher is right in time. When you make the bag bigger, obviously the runner is going to be able to get there quicker, so that I guess will reduce. Which to me, that doesn't really make sense why you would want to do that, why you would want less close calls, why you would want to make it even easier for guys to move from base to base. But I guess maybe I don't know if they think they need to make the bags bigger anyway, that they're too small. I don't know exactly. I think it is kind of a bizarre rule. The competition committee expects impact on the success of stolen base attempts, increase reaching base on ground balls and bunts, because of course with the first base bag being closer or bigger rather, I guess it's closer to home plate. Again, that really is kind of an in the weeds kind of thing, a discussion that you could have at length about the various impacts that's going to have. I do think it is really strange. I would have a hard time believing. I don't know how long the bags have been 15 square inches, but why would you want to change it? I could see definitely more stolen base attempts being something that Major League Baseball wants to do with really the three major outcomes of the home run, the walk, and the strikeout. We're not seeing as many balls in play. We're not seeing as many runners on the base path, so I think make it easier to get to first base, make it easier to steal second, getting more of that old-timey baseball action that I guess that they think that they're missing, and I see that perspective certainly, but that is going to be weird, and that will be implemented at the AAA level during the 2021 season, which I believe all minor league teams will be starting around early May. At the AA level, and this is, I would say, probably the biggest one, a minimum of 4 players in the infield. Both feet must be, completely in the infield dirt, so you can't just have your tippy toes on the edge of the dirt and the rest of your feet in the grass. Then this basically is baseball's first attempt to ban the shift, something that obviously baseball teams have been doing forever, but the more extreme shifts, starting with the Tampa Bay Rays during that golden age with Joe Madden from 2008 really to 2013 is really when it started. And of course, the Rays have taken it and really run with during the Kevin Cash era as well. And we've seen the last couple of years things like the 4-man outfield and having the second baseman standing in shallow right field, things like that. Only having 3 players in the infield, so requiring 4 players to be in the infield at all times would ban this from happening and ban the shift. So I think really what's kind of so frustrating about this, I have a hard time really seeing anyone that would be in favor of this, just that instead of banning the shift, why don't players just hit the opposite way? I know it's easier said than done, but baseball has become, with the launch angle and exit velocity and these players going for home runs, they're pulling the baseball more than ever before. So teams like the Rays, if you're going to pull the baseball, if you're a right-handed batter and you're going to put it between first and second base, basically, or rather, if you're a right-handed batter and you're going to put the baseball between second and third base every time, why don't we just put an extra guy over there, or put a guy in shallow left, in case it's more of a liner or whatever. If baseball has a problem with this, then maybe that right-handed batter needs to put it between first and second and hit the opposite way. And guys who can hit the other way, that's always been valued in baseball, but now more so than ever. And really, I think if they would just not mess with the rules and let the shift stay as it is, you're going to see players who can hit the other way just be valued more, and they'll get more money and they'll be of higher priority. And of course, teams along their minor league system are just going to make more of an emphasis on training guys to hit the other way, just because it's so valuable against the shift. And we've seen the Rays do that. Not only do the Rays shift more than anybody, but they're also at times very good at hitting the opposite way. We've even seen guys like Ji-Man Choi, who they leave because he pulls the ball, the majority of the time. There's teams that won't have anyone between second and third, and Ji-Man Choi could just lay down a bunt or a soft, ground ball over on that side and easily get first base because they're not putting anyone over there. They're basically giving you first base if you can just put the baseball at that part of the field. So I really don't think it's that hard. But I guess instead of doing the more logical solution, they want to, put more. I never think it's a good thing in sports when you prevent the way teams can play, when you limit the amount of strategy. I really think what makes baseball great, and I think what's allowed baseball to survive, 100 years plus, 150, 200 years, is it really is the thinking man's game. It's while you're playing checkers and other sports, baseball I think really is the chess. There's a lot more at play, and now with the advent of analytics, that's brought that to a whole nother level in scouting as well, saying, well, this guy hits, pulls it to the right side of the infield 75-80% of the time. Well, if he's doing that, why don't we just put an extra infielder over there so we can get him out? That's kind of my rant on that, and I'm sure I'll do that number a couple more times as this, I guess, rule goes further and further up the MLB ladder. Of course, this is intended to increase batting average on balls put into play, a stat that's known as BABIP, B-A-B-I-P. You'll see that a lot with analytics and sabermetrics and things like that. Players who have a high BABIP. So that makes sense. And again, that was something I mentioned with increasing the size of the bags, is that's just what they want to see. Obviously, they know that as baseball games have gotten longer and have gotten more rigid, basically, like I said, the three true outcomes, it's a huge talking point the last few years. Almost every at-bat comes down to a walk, a strikeout, or a home run, and no one wants to watch that for 3.5 hours. That's just ridiculous. So I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to get it back to the way it used to be. Let's put the ball into play and see if we can get first. And once we do that, let's see if we can do a hit and run or get him to steal second, and more of that situational baseball and things like that. So in some ways, it does bring back a little bit of strategy, but I think there's other ways to do that than to just outright ban the shift. So again, Double-A, to start the season, a minimum of 4 players with both feet in the infield dirt. Looking towards the second half of the season, the MLB may require two infielders on both sides of second base in the second half of the season. And I think that's kind of, I was talking about the dangers of that before I even mentioned the rule change. Then the first half of the season, you have to have 4 players in the infield dirt, but you can have all 4 of them if you want between first and second. You don't have to have anyone between second and third. But you can't have 4 outfielders. Basically, you can't put, you can't put Brandon Lau, move him from second base over to shallow right field because of a guy that's going to pull the ball. But now in that second half of the season, and a more drastic, I guess, attack on the shift, requiring 2 infielders with both their feet entirely in the dirt, and 2 have to be on both sides of the second base bag, where you're basically just keeping it where your defensive positioning at that point is never going to change. You're going to have your first baseman right on the bag. You're going to have, your second baseman, between first and second base. You're going to have your shortstop between second and third, and obviously your third baseman right near that third base bag. So that would take away pretty much any strategy. You can move guys around a little bit, but not much. And then, guys that pull the baseball every time, they're going to be able to, I guess, get hits when they really shouldn't be, because it's easy ground balls, and if you can just put a guy over there, you're able to throw him out. So very interested. I think that will be a huge indicator on how serious Major League Baseball is on really getting rid of the shift. I don't know exactly what metrics they're going to look at as to whether or not what they're doing is successful. I guess if they get their goal and batting average on balls put into play just goes through the roof, then maybe they take it a step further and implement that optioned rule where, two infielders have to be on both sides of second base. And if they do that, then I think it's really only a matter of time before we see that implemented into the big leagues, which again I think is just a horrible thing for the Rays specifically. But I really don't think it's in the best interest of the sport to go in that direction. At the the high single A level, the rule change that's being implemented, and these I'm not going to have as much to say because this is like really nitty gritty baseball stuff. Pitchers must disengage the rubber prior to throwing to any base with a penalty of a balk, basically, if they stay on the rubber. A similar rule was implemented in the Atlantic League in 2019, which led to a significant increase in stolen bases. So, obviously, we see guys all the time, guys who steal bases, they look for, tells in the pitcher once he comes set. Obviously, you have to step off, or else it's a balk. But, again, this kind of is really getting into the nitty gritty. But you can't just whip it to first anymore when you're on the rubber. So basically, if you're going to throw over to first, you have to be very intentional about it. You have to step off. And then throw over to the base, which you're really not going to pick anyone off doing that. And I think that's what the point I was looking for. Now, basically, the only time you're going to see someone, throw over to first is just to hold in there if they think they're going to steal. If it's Ronald Acuna or, Malik Smith or someone like that's can steal 40 bases and he's a threat and he's getting too big of a lead, all right, you step off the rubber, throw it over the first. But again, that really doesn't even do anything because the runner knows you can get a big lead off of first as long as the pitcher's standing on the rubber, and once he disengages, you can just hop over back to get to the base. Before it was, you could throw it from the rubber, so you could be standing on the rubber, you have all intentions to pitch, and then last second, or you get a sign from the catcher, and you can just whip it over to first base, and then maybe you pick them off. So really, I would imagine with this rule, you're not going to really see any pickoffs. And I would say that there's probably been less of that anyway, pickoffs. But now, getting even less, and I guess really what they're trying to do is to get more stolen bases again. If take away anything from this, that's the trend. That's what baseball's trying to do. They want to get balls back into play. They want to see guys more on the base path and doing things, like stealing bases. In single A high level, pitchers must disengage the rubber prior to throwing to any base. Again, if they don't do this, it's a balk. So basically the same anyway as a stolen base if everyone advances one base. At the single A low level, pitchers are only allotted 2 step-offs / pickoffs. I'm not for sure if they have to disengage the rubber, but they're only allowed to throw to first base twice per plate appearance. If the third attempt is unsuccessful, meaning you don't pick off the runner, a balk is issued. So really, I don't imagine anyone's going to do it the third time because, at that point, you just take your chances and see if he steals the base rather than just if you don't pick him off, he moves to second anyway. And I think it's hard to really tell which one is more drastic. This one, I think I'm kind of okay with. We see that all the time where, it's Ronald Acuna at first base, and maybe it's a reliever that's not that confident in his stuff, and the last thing he wants is Acuna standing at second base that much closer to scoring a run. So instead of just pitching to in his game, he'll throw over to first base like 5 or 6 times in a row. And obviously with issues about pace of play and shortening the length of these games, I understand that you get only 2 pickoff attempts. Maybe I would say, maybe give them a minimum of 3, but they want to go with 2. That's fine. And something as well to me that's interesting in that, what happens after your second pickoff attempt? That runner can get a gigantic lead because he knows there's probably not a good chance that he's going to throw over again, because if it's unsuccessful, you get to second base anyway. So again, you're going to roll the dice. So, and I guess in a way that implements strategy, because once you throw over to first that first time, well, you only get one more in that plate appearance. really. So, if anyone does throw over twice, you're going to see that runner get a gigantic lead, and of course that's going to lead to more stolen bases as well. So they're going to try that out at the low A level. A couple more in the Southwest Division of low A. The automatic ball strike system, ABS, which was used in the Atlantic League and Arizona Fall League in 2019, will be implemented. I read about this, I think, when they were doing it in 2019. Basically, they have cameras or scanners or some sort of device to basically map the strike zone, and they track the pitch as it comes in. And obviously, you see it on the telecast when you're watching games on ESPN or whatever, when they do the graphic and they show if the ball cut any part of the strike zone or of home plate. So instead of leaving it up to the umpires to decide with their eyes, basically they're still going to have someone behind home plate, an umpire. There's Blue will still be back there, and he's going to have an AirPod or some sort of earpiece, and the computer or whatever is just going to tell him whether it's a ball or a strike, and then he gives the signal from there. So take that decision out of the home plate umpire's hands. I really could go either way with this. There's nothing worse than seeing an egregious call from the home plate ump. If it's obviously a strike and he calls it a ball, or obviously the other way around when your team's batter takes a good pitch that he's supposed to take and he calls it a strike anyway, that definitely alters really how the game will go. And obviously taking it out of their hands and putting it into, basically I would imagine with the robot umps, as it's unofficially being called, the automatic ball strike system, I would imagine that it's going to get it right almost every time. And of course, 100% success rate is better than, I don't know, the 80-85% success rate of umpires. I believe that that's what major leaguers will tell you, that there's about 15 pitches, I believe they'll tell you in every game that the call is wrong. So whatever percentage in that game that it happens to be. So basically to go from 15 wrong calls to 0 or maybe 1 missed call, obviously that's better, but I think it is just a little awkward. Why have the guy back there if he can't make the decision whether it's a ball or strike anyway? I think that is a little bit ridiculous, but they're going to try it out as they've been doing, so it's something that they're serious about. And I know there's a lot of people that have been calling for it, whether it's Angel Hernandez or Joe West behind home plate, and they're just obliterating the calls, just getting them wrong left and right, and everyone goes to Twitter or whatever and says, this is why we need robot umps, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. I don't have an argument for that. I just think it's just a little strange is all. Also in the low single A level in the West Division, there's going to be on-field timers, 1 in the outfield and 2 behind home plate, between dugouts, to enforce time limits between delivery of pitches, inning breaks, and pitching changes. I've been going to Major League games for a few years. I think I can remember being there 2016, 2017. I remember at one time there was a pitch clock, but there wasn't really a penalty issued. It was just, again, why have it there if nothing bad happens if you go past it? I guess when it's being more strictly enforced, if you run out of the pitch clock time, a ball is issued to the count or whatever the case is. And obviously this is another effort to increase or decrease rather the time of game. Major League Baseball games used to be 2 hours. Now they're up to 3.5 hours, and I guess they're trying to backtrack and say where did we go wrong here? How do we add an extra hour and a half to game time? And I think any really smart person that watches baseball will tell you it's 2 things. It's all these ridiculous commercial breaks with every pitching change and between every half inning, and also now for whatever reason, Major League Baseball players deciding that batters, after every pitch, they want to step out of the box and fiddle with their batting gloves between every pitch and walk around. If the batter just stayed in the box and the pitcher just stayed on the mound, we could get back to 2-hour games or 2.5-hour games if they're still going to keep those long commercials. The commercials are never going to change. I've heard people, you could just, have little graphics on the screen, but not do commercials. Major League Baseball wants their money. They're not going to do anything that's going to prohibit that. So the commercials are going to change. That's going to always keep baseball games longer. But with these timers, I haven't played baseball, so of course my I guess take would not be as valuable as a Major League Baseball player. But the pitch clock is fine. I would blame the time between pitches more so on the batter though than the pitcher, and I think any even a casual observer could tell you that. And I get that. If the batter stays in the box, then yes, the pitch clock. If he's standing in the box, don't keep him waiting. Give him the pitch. And, you watch any game on YouTube from the 70s or something like that. I mean, it's pitch after pitch after pitch. The guy's standing in the box and the pitcher is standing on the mound. And as soon as the pitcher gets the ball from the catcher, he's getting set to throw another pitch. And I don't see any reason why that needs to change. I don't know if that's because pitchers are throwing harder now and more advanced signs, with all the stuff that's gone on. But these timers, we'll see. Implementing it at the major league level is something I think that's difficult to do because as an umpire, you don't want guys that make millions of dollars and you want to say, all right, Tyler Glass, now, chop, let's go, hurry it up, putting a timer, right in his face. That, I think, is something that's going to be a little bit difficult to do. But I do agree with the point that if you have this implemented at the minor league level, you get players conditioned to playing with that, and you don't necessarily have to have it at the MLB level. But they've been playing with it their whole pro career, so they're just used to playing at a quicker pace. So I think that's something ultimately that I think could work to the favor. And the fact that they're going to do the time limit between inning breaks and pitching changes, I think that's great. But again, as I said, I think that's more of an issue about commercial breaks than the players themselves. I'm sure the players would love to resume the game quicker and not have those long breaks. If you've ever been to a game, you just see how they kind of stand around and maybe they'll play catch a little bit. But I think if you ask them, they would really just like to get at it rather than just standing around for 4 minutes. And now the pitchers are taking a while to warm up too and all that stuff. So we'll keep our eyes on that. I'm not sure, of course, how much word we're going to get, because of how little minor league baseball is covered. But this will ensure that people are paying more attention to it. I think the shift at the AA level is probably the biggest one, and then maybe I would put the disengage the rubber to throw to bases, or only 2 pickoff attempts per plate appearance, and then third ranked as far as importance, I would probably say maybe making the bags bigger, and then the pitch clocks and all that stuff probably last, because that's just a pace of play thing, not really a strategic thing. So that's everything you need to know about the changes implemented in minor league baseball in 2021. We're going to take another short break. When we come back, we're going to tell you about all of the spring training games that we missed. I think it's about 8 or 9 of them, getting you caught up on all those. And then at the end, I also have right now my prediction for the opening day 26-man roster. So don't go anywhere. Also, you can call the show. We do have a line open if you want to talk Rays, Bucs, Lightning, whatever. 877-566-1020. We'll be right back.
Are you a fan of Florida State University athletics? Then the WHBC-produced podcast, FSU Sports Daily, is for you. Returning this fall, FSU Sports Daily is your everyday look into everything from Florida State football, basketball, baseball, soccer, and much, much more. The William Haynes Show will be right back.
HBC. And at 10:01, we are back on the William Haynes Show again. Number to call if you want to talk Rays or anything sports, Tampa Bay sports. You can give us a call. A line open for you at 877-566-1020 is the number to call. Maybe for about another half hour or maybe even another hour, depending on how long it takes to get through all this. So the spring training games that we missed, we did our last show on the, it looks like, let's see, Monday, the 8th, I believe, of March. And so we've missed quite a few games since then. The first of which coming on March 9th, a Rays 11-3 win over the Red Sox. This was a 9-inning contest. Josh Fleming in his second outing, getting through 2 innings, giving up just a hit and picking up a strikeout, no runs. So I don't think he's going to be a starter or maybe used as a starter in spots, maybe occasionally as, on a 6th day if they just need innings or whatever. But I think more so we'll see him 3 or 4 innings, whether behind an opener or if they're going to do a tandem start maybe with a guy like Rich Hill or Michael Wacha. So to see him get stretched out a little bit, and I think he's had even another appearance since then. Also, Shane McClanahan dazzles in his second outing, struck out the side in the second inning, and I believe he did that again a couple of days ago. Shane McClanahan, we'll get to this in a little bit, the couple of roster cuts that were made, but Shane McClanahan, I think, is going to be a major player, even as early as really this season. He's not going to start on the opening day roster. And it surprised me a little bit just how committed they are to having him as a starter. That's what he's come up as, but we saw him make his major league debut in the postseason last year as a reliever. We were thinking maybe is this, a David Price type where he starts next year in the bullpen, but maybe gets stretched out to a starter. They're just going to have him start, I guess, at AAA Durham and get him work as a starter, getting him 5, 6, 7 innings at a time and until he's really ready, or really not as much as is he ready as do we need him. I mean, the Rays have 5 capable, proven, established Major League Baseball starting pitchers. So Shane McClanahan could not have asked really anything better from him, striking out the side almost every time he comes in. Has a wicked fastball with all kinds of crazy movement, and it's got a nice breaking ball off of that he's really implemented a little bit more. So one of the highlights certainly of this spring. Nick Anderson makes his spring debut, throwing only 9 pitches, getting 3 ground ball outs. It was kind of funny. He was saying he did had a little, mid-game interview spot with Trisha Whitaker on Fox Sports Sun, and joking that, I'm a ground ball pitcher now, because I think he's been more of a fly ball guy with the high fastballs and the curveball. So getting some ground ball outs there, but a nice quick inning. Something we're concerned about, just how, I don't want to say how poorly he performed, but there was a drop-off towards the end of October in the postseason, but really it's hard to blame him just with how much he was being used. So I was a little bit worried about, is he going to be back next year? Is he going to, was this a permanent issue potentially, or did he just need rest? Well, got off to a nice start there last Tuesday. Hunter Strickland, Diego Castillo, and Andrew Kittredge all pitched scoreless innings. Kittredge with a couple of strikeouts. Castillo giving up a couple of hits as well, but all picking up scoreless innings, just getting those guys work. None of those 3 are really going to pitch more than 1 inning at a time. Castillo, I think, can go 2. Kittredge, I think, can even go 2. But and then also Strickland, I don't think is going to start on the Major League roster, just not really enough spots. As it stands right now, talking about position players, Brett Phillips was in right field, Kevin Kiermaier in center, getting some work there, went 1 for 2, and then Josh Slow, who came in also at center field, 2 for 3. He's really impressed this spring, and Zunino getting some reps at catcher. Kevin Cash said where he stands right now, this was not official, but that the rotation was going to be Glasnow, Yarbrough, Archer, Hill, and Wacha, which I think is not a surprise, and it makes the most sense having the 2 established, really veterans at this point, Glasnow and Yarbrough at the top, Archer 3, and then Rich Hill 4, and Michael Wacha 5, I think would make the most sense. And I think today or yesterday, Kevin Cash officially told Glass now that he would be the starter on opening day. So, and also get a chance to swing the bat maybe a couple times down in Miami in a National League ballpark. But, have him start on opening day, that's great. Ryan Thompson also working on a new changeup. I think he got some game time as well, or working on the backfield. So a guy that's got kind of a side armor. It's tough to evaluate kind of what pitches are what, but a cutter, a slider, and now maybe a changeup. A guy that I really like and that I hold in high regard as far as the right-handed side of the bullpen is concerned. Of course, Castillo, Anderson being in a class of their own, but maybe Ryan Thompson just a rung lower. If he's got a third pitch, that's rare for a reliever. I believe he's got two now, and now the third with a changeup, so that's good to see. On March 10th, the Rays lose 6-2 to the Minnesota Twins in an 8-inning contest. This was the second outing for pitcher Luis Patino, who has since been reassigned, essentially. We'll get into that in a little bit. In the second, this was his second 1-2-3 inning. That was what he had his first outing as well. So really good, just as far as put him up, put him down. Not a whole lot in between. 12 of his 16 pitches were fastballs, so something that he trusts. I like a starting pitcher that can trust his fastball and establish him for strikes. Of course, that's great as well. Kevin Cash really praised his ability to do both of those things. And again, he's not going to start at the Major League club, but there's no doubt that there's going to be injuries. There's a lot of innings to cover. Maybe even just rest. Maybe guys aren't hurt, but they're they only pitched 40 or 50 innings last year. Now they're being asked to pitch 120. We know, Major League teams don't like to increase a pitcher's workload by more than 20%. Well, now basically teams are going to ask pitchers to increase their load by 100%. So what are the ramifications of that? We really won't know until we are, in the middle of it, dealing with it in June and July in the dog days. So to have guys like Luis Patino, to have guys like Shane McClanahan, really good pitchers that could start their major league level quality, I think it's fair to say. Maybe need a little bit of work on polish, sure, but that they could be basically the Rays have probably 7, maybe 8 with the return of Brent Honeywell. The fact that they have 8 starting pitchers that can start with quality at the major league level. Really no team set up as well as the Rays, I think, to take on this 2021 season and all the weird things that it's going to bring. Chaz Rowe made his shaky debut in that game in his inning of work. He was able to get out of it. They didn't have to roll the inning, thankfully. 3 earned runs, a double, a triple, and a hit by pitch in his first 4 batters. Really don't look into this too much. It's a pitcher's first outing, really, in a real game since October, so that's going to happen. The breaking ball looked healthy according to everyone involved. So Chaz Rowe's slider is really where he makes his money. So if that's still where it needs to be, there's no worry for him. And as we'll talk about later, no real guarantee that he's even going to start at the major league level. I would imagine he gets a nod over some of the younger guys, just because he's a veteran and they gave him, over $1 million. So who knows? But Cody Reed in his second outing, a perfect inning of work. Kevin Cash said he sees him more as a multi-inning guy, like a Jalen Beeks, and I think this was maybe something that one of our callers, Seth, brought up, I believe, quite a while ago. I think I was listening back to a show that I did right when we got Cody Reed, and everyone was really high on him. He had a couple good outings, and then with the pinky issue on his throwing hand, he was shut down for the year, and apparently the Rays in the front office thought highly of him then, and they feel the same way now, that he can be a high-leverage multi-inning guy, which is really valuable. Since kind of with the lack of left-handed relievers that we have, I saw him as more of a specialist, but you can always do both. Just because you're stretched out to go 2 innings doesn't mean you can't throw 8 pitches on a given night. So Cody Reed being good, that's a great thing for this bullpen. One of the youngster prospects, Joe Ryan, in his inning of work, 2 strikeouts. Stetson Alley, who I think has come on really strong and has done himself very well. He's going to make it hard to send him down to the minors. But I don't know, maybe has an outside chance at making the major league roster, but I don't know if he would kick out one of our established arms. In his inning of work, had a walk and a couple strikeouts. A guy that can throw triple digits, 100-mile-an-hour fastball, and with relative control compared to where he was at previously, I think is a good sight. Also, Jeffrey Springs in his inning of work, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, 2 hits. Both pitchers, I think, acquired in that deal with Boston, where they gave up Ronaldo Hernandez, getting both Jeffrey Springs and Chris Mazza. There's a chance neither of them make the opening day roster, and Springs is 28 and Mazza is 31, so maybe not such a good deal, but they thought that there was value to be had in those pitchers, so we'll see how that goes. Brandon Lau made his debut, starting at least at third base. He's gotten some reps there. Brasso debut at shortstop, and this was Yoshi's second time at first base, and he's continually gotten better each game he's been over there. I finally did the research. I've always talked, I'm pretty sure Yoshi was a first baseman in the Japan League. Well, I went and I dug up the numbers. He played about 120, 140 games at first base in the Japan League, but had not done so since 2014. They really transitioned him more to a corner outfield type, which surprises me because of how bad he looks every time they play him in left field. And I think he also had some time at third base, which he's also looked pretty well. And also, you want to talk about a guy that's looking good at third base. Yandy Diaz, I think a big bounce back candidate with his improved condition. So, but yeah, Yoshi improving at first base, certainly. Lau and Brasso are seen as kind of emergency situation or versatility as far as, Lau playing third, Brasso shortstop. But Yoshi is seen as a real platoon option, and now in the last couple of days, Cash has really given Yoshi a vote of confidence, and obviously it's not a move they're going to make right now. They're paying him almost $2 million this year. I think the Rays are in a situation where they don't necessarily need Choi. I know I get backlash for that. I love Choi just as much as anyone, but he's not versatile. He doesn't play any spot but first base. And if you're telling me we're, having Yoshi, and again, this could be different because Yoshi's only under contract for this year, and and Choi still in his arbitration years. But Yoshi, a guy that could play first, third, left field. Brasso, who can play first, second, third, and now shortstop. That's a righty-lefty platoon right there. And again, I get that. Maybe you do want an everyday first baseman, and that's never a bad thing to have. And how tremendous Choi has been defensively with the splits over at first base. So maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe you do need to have an everyday first baseman, but we've got a righty and a lefty bat who can play that first base position just fine. So to have a third guy that's not as versatile, to me, that's just where I'm at. But good to see Yoshi. You never know when you're going to need him, and maybe opening day he's our opening day first baseman. So who knows? And then Zunino hitting a single in that game, his first hit of the spring, and he's come on strong. I think he hit a home run today or yesterday. We'll find out. Moving on to March the 11th, the Rays lose 2-0 to the Braves in a 9-inning game. Tyler Glasnow was on the mound, 4 innings of work, 1 hit, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts, no runs allowed against the Braves. Basically was called their A lineup. I mean, all their players, Freddie Freeman, Ronald Acuna Jr., Albies, and I believe Markakis and all those guys, Travis d'Arnaud. Again, yeah, all their players that are going to be starting in the regular season. And one of the probably top lineups in the National League. So the Glasnow was able to dominate that lineup to that level is good. And, of course, he started today in Bradenton against the Pirates and looked fantastic. Did give up some hits, but I finally got a chance to really watch him, and that wasn't just a one-inning appearance, and to see him really work. That slider, man, I'll tell you, that the 3 pitches, and now really 4 if he's going to start working the changeup more. He's gone from a 2-pitch pitcher that was in a bullpen guy in Pittsburgh to an ace of the American League champion Rays that could basically have 4 pitches. I mean, how far he's come is fantastic, and his velocity is 100, 98, 99, 100. He's got one of the fastest curveballs in the league at like 82, 83. and that slider at 87, and I was a little questionable about it. I hadn't really seen it in action. That is a legitimate slider. Like, we're talking Chaz Rowe type nasty slider that has drastic break really quick. And the fact that he throws it at 87 with such velocity, you don't even see it coming. It's incredible. So, I'm pretty sure you can get Tyler Glasnow for the Cy Young this year at some pretty long odds. I don't think it would be a bad idea maybe to put a couple of dollars on that, because I think the ceiling is through the roof for Glasnow this season. He retired 11 straight batters at one point. 34 of his 52 pitches were for strikes. Something that Glasnow is usually good with, and whenever he's not, that's the number one thing to look for. Okay, was he not getting his fastball for strikes? And that's with the walks is where he gets into issues, and then guys maybe sit on the curveball or whatever. And I think with one or two new pitches in his arsenal, I don't think he likes the changeup that much, but the slider I think is a legitimate third pitch that he can use at any time in the at-bat, and that's great. Everyone was pleased with the slider. Like a cut fastball at 86-90. That was the kind of scouting report that came out on it. And again, I gave you my thoughts on what I saw from him today. Going back to the March 11th game, Colin McHugh, 2 innings of work, 3 hits, gave a run. His one hit was a home run, or one of his hits was a home run to Ronald Acuna. So kind of a rough outing, and what's been kind of a tough spring for McHugh. They really like his stuff. They like what he's doing, and really as a bulk guy and a potential spot starter. I don't really know why they needed another Trevor Richards. Maybe he's better than Richards. I don't know, but again, I'm not even sure he starts on the opening day roster, but maybe with the money they have committed to him, they find him a spot. Fairbanks, in his first outing back from that food poisoning, gave up a hit, which was a solo home run, and then in the field, Yoshi was in left field, Yandy at first base. That's another guy that I forget about, Yandy playing first base. Think of him more as a third baseman type, and he's looked really quite athletic over there. And Franco at shortstop. Moving now to March 12th, the Rays lose 8-2 to the Red Sox in a 9-inning game. This was Chris Archer's debut, spring debut back in a Rays uniform. Went 1 1/3, so did get that second up, basically, that he didn't pitch that entire second inning, but pitching the first inning, being in the dugout for 10-15 minutes, and then coming out to start another inning. So getting kind of a head start in that regard, and it looks like he's tracking well for the start of the season. The 4 batters that he got out, again, it was 4 up, 4 down. Christian Arroyo, Verdugo, Bogarts, and JD Martinez. So those are good, legitimate. Those aren't the Red Sox prospects. Those are the guys that are going to be in their lineup when the Rays face them this season. So good to see Archer. There was a good piece about him in the Times that he was nervous about it. He hasn't pitched really in a game since the summer of 2019 with the thoracic outlet surgery and all the recovery that's come with that. But there's been talk that he's as strong as ever. That he's in the best shape that he's been. That his arm, that his shoulders is a really great shape. So Chris Archer, another a guy that could surprise some people this year, making only $6.5 million doing it as well. And of course the absolute fleecing that was done of the Pittsburgh Pirates, that he ends up coming back to the Rays in a year and a half after anyway. Trevor Richards appeared in that game, the March 12th game, 2 innings of work. 2 runs, 2 hits, no walks, which was good to see. That's always been a thing with him, is just don't walk anybody. And struck out 4, which was nice to see. Also, Hunter Strickland and Andrew Kittredge couldn't finish their innings. Walks got them into trouble. 2 right-handers that may not be on the opening day roster. Chris Mazza in an inning of work, picking up a couple strikeouts. So that was nice to see him have a good outing. And Wander Franco at shortstop, once again going 0 for 3. So it's been a little rough of a spring for him, but no questioning his ability. I know we'll always remember that 550-foot home run. Who knows if it was that far. In a game against Pittsburgh early in March, that March 3rd game. Now moving To March 13th, the Rays lose 1-0 to the Twins in an 8-inning contest. This was the second outing for Rich Hill. First outing was not able to get out of the first. They just rolled the inning over. This outing pitched for 3 innings, gave up just 1 hit and 1 walk, no runs, 36 pitches, so great pacing as well. I think that's huge for Hill. Again, really drawing some comparisons right now to Charlie Morton. I think they're fair. Really kind of crafty veterans with a really nice curveball that are very composed. Hopefully don't walk a lot of guys and can get through innings efficiently. I think that's a great sign. Chaz Rowe, Cody Reed, Ryan Sheriff, Jeffrey Springs all pitched scoreless innings in that contest, so good to see them all tracking well. Shane Baz gave up the losing home run to Astudillo of the Twins, the man they called the Turtle. I think one of the cooler nicknames in Major League Baseball. So Shane Baz, that's going to happen. When you're throwing fastballs, I think it's a fastball. I have no idea. He's pretty much got one pitch, but it moves the entire length of the plate, left to right or right to left, to wherever he wants to spin it. It seems like he can move the baseball like crazy. And sometimes they don't move as much and they just kind of hang, and that's where you're going to get those home runs, something we've seen with Glasnow. If you go back and watch his 2018 starts, that was something he had a big issue with and really has kind of looked back from that. But that's certainly a weakness to point to in Glasnow's game, and maybe that'll be something from Shane Baz too. But it's 1 home run, not a big deal. I have this under March 13th, but really the Trop is looking to be at 25% capacity, which is 9,000. Single game tickets will start. The announcement would be made on March 22nd. I wrote that down before we even got word. Basically, so season members will get access next Wednesday, and I think single game tickets will be available to the public that Thursday or Friday, the 25th and the 26th of March. And the only tickets available are going to be the first 2 homestands, which is between the April 9th through the 15th. And April 23rd through May 2nd. So those are the teams they'll be playing. They got a 3-game set against the Yankees, 4 against the Rangers, 3 against the Blue Jays, 4 against the Athletics, and 3 against the Houston Astros. So really some all premier, well, maybe not Texas, but the rest of those are certainly premier matchups that you want to be there to see. So I think that's cool to see that, I don't mean this sarcastically at all. I mean that is a little bit less, but somewhat what has kind of been normal attendance. I would say on a normal night, the Trop is having about 12 to 15,000 people pre-COVID, of course. So 9,000 is really right up there. And again, I don't mean that to denigrate anybody or to get down on the fans or whatever. But I'm just saying that it's going to be somewhat normal. That's about what the Rays have. There's certainly been plenty nights where they have 9,000 fans, and I think something that'll be cool to see is those 9,000 are going to sound a lot louder than they did in years past. Fans are going to be so happy to be back and know that their voices need to be heard, and all the players on the Rays have talked about how much it'll mean to have fans back and how much they've enjoyed having them, just 1,000 or so in spring training. So 9,000, which is about 25%. And don't forget, as we move along this season, of course, everything's subject to change. I mean, the Texas Rangers are going to have 40,000 on opening day. So I know it's outdoor. That's going to be the obstacle, is the closed roof in Tropicana Field is going to be the biggest hurdle, indoor versus outdoor. But it's a long season. We're talking a 6-month season, and into October, who knows? That 25% number, I think, has a greater chance definitely to go up than to go down per se, unless something goes terribly wrong. So they'll start off with 9,000. Getting back to the March 13th game, or actually not. This is just miscellaneous notes that I had. The Rays are expected to receive $50 to $60 million in revenue sharing, which I don't even want to get into that, everything that it means, but just interesting that Stu Sternberg says he's losing money hand over fist, and they're collecting $50 to $60 million, which basically covers their entire payroll. That's the money that they're receiving in revenue sharing. I could be missing the mark as far as what that means, but I just take that at face value. They're expected to receive $50 to $60 million in revenue sharing, so That's just something, I don't know, keep that in mind. We'll probably talk about it down the line whenever we go big picture with just how the Rays are run and why they feel they can't make money here when the revenue sharing is covers their entire payroll. March 13th, the word came out that Ji-Man Choi was out for 7 to 10 days with right knee inflammation. It doesn't look like it's gotten any better. They're going to be careful with it. Again, it's a long season. There's no need to have him out there on opening day on April 1st, and they've got 3 guys: Yoshi, Brasso, Yandy Diaz, who can play at first base. So they'll make it work. It'll be fine. March 14th, against the Rays lose 8-7 to the Braves in a 9-inning game. Diego Castillo, Nick Anderson, Austin Alley, Stetson Alley, and Brian Moran all had scoreless innings pitched. Again, Brian Moran not going to start on the big league level, I don't think, but a really crafty lefty veteran out of the pen, brother of Chris Moran on the Pirates, but someone they faced early in the first series actually of the season last year against the Toronto Blue Jays, and someone that gave them some trouble. So they all looked well. And of course, the big talking point, Wander Franco, with making his debut at third base. Kevin Cash says it's really for versatility. Reiterated the quote. And again, this is something that's interesting to me as we've been covering this kind of Adames/Franco saga. Cash reiterating kind of their mantra, Willie is our shortstop. So a lot of talk has been made. I talked about it. I was asking, I was questioning it. Why hasn't Franco played at third base? Why, if Willie is your shortstop, then why are you also playing Franco at shortstop? How are these two players going to coexist if they both only play shortstop? It just doesn't work that way. And really the logical explanation that myself and many others arrived to is, let's do the A-Rod Jeter thing. We have a great talented player coming up that traditionally played shortstop, but we also have kind of the captain, the guy that's already been the shortstop. So you kick the newcomer over to third base, as the Yankees did with Aaron Rodriguez. And keeping Jeter over at shortstop. I kind of see that being the same way. Franco, he's talked about it. He said he felt fine there. Has not played in third base a lot throughout the minors, but he says something that he feels natural and comfortable with, and he's also reiterated that he wants to do whatever gets him to the big leagues the quickest, and that would certainly be third base, because they have their shortstop of the future. They don't have a third baseman of the future. They've got Wendell, who's, 30, 31. They've got Yandy Diaz, who I don't know if he's going to be here forever. Mike Brasso. Those are more kind of stopgaps than really kind of a permanent fixture, but Wander could be a guy that's your third base for the next five years, and then maybe when they move on from Willie, then Wander moves over to shortstop. So, or maybe they just decide, what the heck, we're going to trade Willie and we're going to make Wander our shortstop and go from there. And they certainly could do that, and I think would be fine. I think Franco is a much better bat than Willie, and they're probably comparable at shortstop, but why not have them both together is what I would say. So that's just the next kind of news item in that saga, as I said, and that looks like to be probably the only time he gets at third base. They asked Cash about it, if that was a move that they had expected, get him versatility for the big league level, and Cash was like, no, we just wanted to get him some time there. So moving on to March 15th, this game was the Rays 3-2 win over the Red Sox. Brett Phillips came out that day. He had a grade 1 hamstring strain, which is going to keep him out 3 to 4 weeks. He's going to spend that time on the injured list. Also with Ji-Man Choi, it's too early to tell for opening day. Retroactive to March 15th, they've basically reiterated that over the last couple of days, essentially. Looking at the box score of that game, Joe Ryan with a scoreless inning to open it up. It looks like he's a starter type, I suppose. Hunter Strickland gave up a run, 3 hits. McClanahan struck out the side again. Absolutely just fantastic what he's been able to do. Fleming, out of the bullpen, pitched multiple innings, which I think is what he'll be doing in the regular season. Pete Fairbanks with a clean inning, no hits, or rather 1 hit, 1 strikeout, no runs. Ryan Thompson with the 1-2-3 inning. David Hess finally got through an inning without giving up a run, which I guess is good to see. And then looking towards the offense, which there was not a ton of it, and where guys were playing. Yandy was at third. Brandon Lau was in left. He had a couple strikeouts, and Neil Solondz on the radio where I was listening to that game said that those were just pitches he took for strikes that he would normally swing at. Definitely not a guy that takes fastballs, so looks like he's just kind of trying to find his groove. No worry there. Kiermaier was in center, 2 for 2, I think with a couple of doubles. Yeah, so he looked really good. Wendell over at second, Yoshi at first, and Austin Meadows in right field. And then also they made on that day their first cuts of the season. It was a cut of 10. The pitchers, Shane Baz, Phoenix Sanders, Tyler Zombro. Shane Baz really the only significant one there. The catcher, Blake Hunt, who many believe is kind of the catcher of the future. The outfielders, Moises Gomez and Garrett Whitley, who, again, not a huge deal. And then the infielders, Xavier Edwards and Greg Jones. They also reassigned the pitcher, Kenny Rosenberg. And then, of course, Wander Franco was in that reassignment as well. Basically, the deadline came up where you had to send guys off the major league roster or out of the major league spring training, or else they would have to spend time on the major league injured list if they got hurt, which would count against major league service time. So guys who had never played in the majors, starting that clock is not something you want to do. So now those players reassigned, if they're still at Port Charlotte, they can still appear in spring training games also. But now just if they get hurt, they'll be on the minor league injured list instead of the major league one. So, and I believe today they made another big cut as well. So we're going to take another short break. Really not a lot of the program left. When we come back, we just have a couple more games to talk about, yesterday's and today's, and the second round of cuts, and then also how I project the opening day roster as it stands with everything that we know right now, and then also maybe take a couple more of your calls, or just a couple of your calls in general, I suppose, when we come back. So we'll be back in a minute. Don't go anywhere.
Hey, Rays fans, William will be right back. We're in a commercial break, so don't touch that dial. Remember, you can call us internationally toll-free at 877-566-1020, or tweet us your thoughts at WHBC Official. Also, we'd like you to stay tuned for William's other podcasting projects at speaker.com/user/WHBC.
HBC. And at 10:35, we are back on the William Haynes Show. Maybe about 10 or 15 minutes left in the program. I just saw this during the break. The Rangers with a 9-0 win tonight over the Philadelphia Flyers. So not a bad team. Not really relevant to any discussion, but just... and also, with COVID, their entire coaching staff, including head coach David Quinn, was out. I don't even know who was coaching the team. They won 9-0. That's insane. That'll just something you'll see on SportsCenter tonight, certainly if you watch it. And also, just want to remind you, if we have anyone listening currently during the remainder of the show, feel free to give us a call. You want to talk Rays, Bucs, whatever. 877-566-1020 is, as always, the number to call. But as we move ahead in our discussion to yesterday, March 16th, the Rays win 7-1 over the Orioles in a 7-inning game. Felix Hernandez, so weird to see him in an Orioles uniform. I don't even know why he went to the Orioles. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But he got the start. It was originally scheduled, the game was scheduled initially to be 9 innings, and Felix Hernandez only pitched an inning. He was supposed to pitch more. I don't know if that's an injury or what. So they ended up shortening it to a 7-inning contest. With the 7 runs, it was good. Again, half these games are played by minor leaguers that aren't going to see the field this year, so final score really doesn't mean anything. But the fact that last week they went like 5 or 6 games and they were scoring 0 and 1 and 2 runs was not good to see. So now that they're back scoring, 7, 9 runs, that's definitely where you want to be. On the pitching side, Ryan Yarbrough, 3 1/3, so he got that 4th up, which was good to see. And the fact that he's already at 3 1/3, maybe he gets through 4 innings in his next start, and then maybe 5. I don't know exactly how that's going to line up. Maybe he can get 2 more starts in before his first regular season start. I would imagine probably starting the second game of the season. Not that it matters really right now as far as, we need to have our 1 pitcher, then our second best pitcher on the second day and everything. You can mess around with it, but I'd imagine if it works out, he'll be their day 2 starter. Gave up 3 hits, which Yarbrough is always going to give up contact. That's just how he does things. He's not going to blow fastballs by you. I think if he really wanted to reach back and throw some velocity, he can maybe scratch out 92 or 93. Sits mostly high 80s. So gave up some hits, but some were like ground balls through the shift or against the shift or whatever. So not a big deal. And some like line drives that could have been caught. So and picked up 2 strikeouts, no runs. So it was good to see. Andrew Kittredge getting a little bit of length, an inning and 2/3. Gave up a run in the process, a couple of hits. Again, I don't know quite where he fits in to the Major League roster. We'll just kind of have to wait and see on that until it's official. Luis Patino, again, who was sent down, but again, they can appear in those games. They're just, again, like I said before the break, they just are not counting against Major League service time if they have to spend time on the injured list. So he pitched a clean inning. It was kind of weird to see how they were using him, that it wasn't a start and that was just an inning, that he probably could have pitched more, I would assume. So I think they're still going to use him as a starter, but maybe just they wanted to get him some work. So, and then also Jeffrey Springs, the 28-year-old lefty, with a clean inning, a strikeout, a hit. So no runs there, which was good to see. And then looking at the offense, Zunino got a home run, Brasso with a double. That was good to see as well. Yoshi was playing first base, and he looked actually pretty good over there. Again, Zunino at catcher, Randy Arozarena in left. Yandy at third base, again, he looked good there as well. Brasso at second, and all that. So, looks like everyone is tracking nicely where they need to be. Versatility across the infield has been a big thing, certainly this spring. And also something else that they did, they sent 9 players down to cut down to 53 players. What are we talking about, the Buccaneers? 53-man roster? No, it's the Rays. So they made their second round of cuts. Shane McClanahan was, I guess, the most notable of which. Infielders Vidal Brujan, Kevin Padlo, and Taylor Walsh were sent down. The outfielder Josh Lowe, pitchers Brent Honeywell, Luis Patino, Drew Strotman, along with Shane McClanahan, and two-way player Brendan McKay, who I forgot to mention did get his first at-bat of the spring against the Red Sox, and it was against their closer Matt Barnes, and he did walk, so that was good to see. A guy that I don't think is going to be able to pitch for quite a little bit, but a guy whose bat they really like as well. So, but he is optioned down, which makes sense. They're all in the 40-man roster, so they have to be optioned. Again, Tuesday was the league-wide deadline for teams to option those players and make sure that any injured list time is served at the minor league level. thus without major league service time or pay. So again, that's all kind of the Rays are cheap kind of nonsense. And I say that in a playful way, that's just what people make of it. Every team runs their club that way. Just to make sure everything is where it needs to be. No need to pay a guy who's never appeared in a major league game major league money and start his clock because you didn't want to tick him off the roster. So it makes sense, as there's about at this point, there's about 2 full weeks of spring training left, and they've cut down to 53. They're going to have to cut down to 26 by April 1st, so they're getting there. And again, I talked about this, I think, on the last show. We're moving towards that point where it's not just, at the beginning of spring, guys maybe get an at-bat or two, and they spend 3 or 4 innings in the field. Then you take them out, and you put in some of the minor leaguers to get some time. Well, now we're getting to the point where we're getting closer. Starting opening day, they're going to be out there for 9 innings. They're going to be getting 5 at-bats. So want to get them more accustomed to that. And I think that Boston game a couple days ago, I was listening. Neil Solondz again did a tremendous job with the call, and I'll always say he could be a voice of a major league club, but of course he doing the pre and post game show for the Rays radio network and a part of their, I guess, in-game broadcast as well. He's got a nice gig there, but definitely love to hear him call games play-by-play, and he does it solo too. It takes a good announcer to do a 9-inning game like that by himself, but that's always a treat to hear him. But he was saying that traditionally teams like to get their main starters in spring training about 40 to 50 at-bats, and at that point, halfway through the duration of spring training, most have only gotten about a third of that. So not making up for lost time, but just that the rate, the pace is going to be more. They're going to get a lot more at-bats in a shorter amount of time as they hopefully get to that 40 or 50 at-bat goal. So part of this sending some guys down is to get guys more time, but also, again, if they want to have Shane McClanahan or Shane Baz or Patino throw, or they want to get Josh Lowe or Wander Franco some more at-bats, they're more than welcome to do that. They're still allowed, and they're still in Port Charlotte because of minor league baseball being pushed off until May. So they're still going to be working out with the big league club and all that. It's just officially they're not there, and I think kind of the mindset as well is, okay, we're cutting down. These are the players we want to start the season with, and so on and so forth. So that's what I would say about that. And again, Yoshi at first, Yandy at third, Adames at shortstop. Those are 3 players that had a really nice game defensively, and really good to see Yoshi at first and Yandy at third do what they did. Moving on to today's game, the Rays win 10-9 over the Pittsburgh Pirates in 9 innings. The St. Patrick's Day special. The Rays had their green hats and green socks and all that in Bradenton, and the fly balls were flying indeed. The only television call that was available was for the Pirates, so of course they weren't happy every time the Rays blasted a home run, and they were basically just saying that most of those home runs are routine fly balls in the regular season just because of how the wind, I guess, was carrying it out of there. And it was also, 85 degrees too, so that warm weather really, that thin air, the ball really flies through. But 10 runs, anytime you score 10 runs, that's a good thing to see. On the pitching side, Tyler Glasnow, 4 innings once again, so not necessarily concerning, but he threw that the last time too. They seem to be content with how he's pacing, and 4 innings, he's nearly there. Maybe he throws 5 innings the next time, or whatever the case is. I mean, looking at, he maybe starts the 22nd against the Red Sox, and then can start maybe that Saturday against the Twins, and then that would literally put him perfect to start 5 days later against the Marlins. So he's got 2 starts left. So maybe he pitches 4 innings on the 22nd, and then maybe gets 5 or 6 on the 27th, and then gets ready to play against the Marlins on April 1st. So not a big deal. 4 innings, 6 hits, 4 runs, a walk. So the 1 walk is good. The 6 hits, not as much. 7 strikeouts, which was also good. And just his stuff. Well, that's really what I was paying attention to. I watched the first 3 or 4 innings or so of this game. The fastball is perfect, as it was 98, 99, 100. The curveball at 82, 83 looks good. Got the bite to it. One of the faster curveballs in the league, and the slider at 87 or so. That really plays like he's been throwing it his whole career. It looks like a legitimate slider. So that's really what I was paying attention to. Don't look at the 4 runs as much. I mean, he pitched terrifically. Nick Anderson came in behind him with an inning of work, 3 hits, a run, also a strikeout. So a little bit of a tricky spot for him there. Chris Ellis gave up 3 innings and 3 runs in an inning, but he doesn't really fit into the plans anywhere necessarily. Stetson Alley with another clean inning, again just adding to his stock. An inning of work, 1 walk, but no hits or runs or anything. And then Chris Mazza giving them a little bit of length with 2 innings of work, a run on 4 hits, 2 strikeouts. So a good look for everyone all around, although they did give up 9 runs in the game. And the offense was playing well. Joey Wendell really came through, got his first hit of the spring also in a game where he went 3 for 3 at third base. Wander Franco goes 1 for 5 at shortstop, so his average for the spring is down to 273, which I guess is not bad, but it seems like he's had a lot of those 0 for 4 or 1 for 5 or whatever. Brasso 2 for 4 at first base. That's good to see. Austin Meadows hitting his 4th home run of the spring. Leads off in left field 2 for 4. So that's great. Francisco Mejia got a run batted in, so that was good to see. Looking also, Ryan Bolt and Masturbani, the prospects, they look good, and that was about it. Half of this game again was played by, looks like, kind of prospects and stuff. So I guess they're still kind of playing it somewhat slow. I mean, again, we're 2 weeks away from opening day at this point. Thursday, I guess officially, will be 2 weeks to the day before spring training. So we're only 14, 15 days away. That's very exciting. So good win today, I guess. They're now 7-9 for whatever that's worth. But to see Meadows, including an inside fastball, which it was a pitch that he really could not get to last year, I think that was the one he got the homer off of, or maybe that was the one he singled off of. I don't recall, but doing things he has not done since 2019, and that's really nice to see. They've got a couple of those guys that hopefully can return to form, because 2020 really was a weird year, and guys, some of them, I don't think they were quite at their best. So if they can return to that form, this guy is really the limit for this team. And now what I wanted to close the show out with was, right now, with everything we know, how I would project the opening day roster, and we'll maybe do this exercise a couple more times before spring trainings end. Of course, they're going to have and before I say that, 26-man roster. We don't know if it's a pitcher limit, so I'm doing this in assumption that there's going to be 13 pitchers and 13 position players, just for logistics' sake. Obviously, you're going to have your 5 starting pitchers: Tyler Glasnow, who will start on opening day; Ryan Yarbrough, Chris Archer, Rich Hill, and Michael Wacha. Right now, again, this is just my projection: 3 left-handed relievers: Josh Fleming, Cody Reed, both who can get multiple innings, and then you probably want 1 lefty that's like a specialist. So I said either Ryan Sheriff or Jeffrey Springs. I would give the edge to Sheriff, but Springs belongs in that conversation, obviously, because of what they gave up to get him. And he's 28 years old, so it's not like he needs to develop anymore. I had 5 right-handed relievers, obviously Nick Anderson, Diego Castillo, Peter Fairbanks. I think Ryan Thompson is another obvious one, but maybe they go Chaz Rowe over Thompson, but I would say probably Thompson. And then the 5th being Colin McHugh, which is tough. I really think it would be hard to keep Chaz Rowe out of the opening day roster, but you can only have 26 men, and maybe they go 14 pitchers, 12 position players, if they're allowed to do that. They may not. And I'm also omitting some really quality guys as well, like Trevor Richards and Chris Mazza and the likes of those. So, again, right-handed relievers: Anderson, Castillo, Fairbanks, Thompson, McHugh. 2 catchers: Mike Zunino and Francisco Mejia, you got to have at least 2, and I don't think Kevin Smith, there's no need to carry 3 catchers. That's ridiculous. So he'll just be kind of a backup or a COVID kind of emergency, whatever, but he's actually looked pretty decent the last year and now here in spring training. 6 infielders. I'm classifying Yoshi as an infielder, but it doesn't matter how you classify him. He's going to be on the opening day roster, barring an injury. Yoshi, Willie Adames, Mike Brasso, Yandy Diaz, Lowe, Brandon Lau. I see the Lowe, and I blanked out for a second. Brandon Lau, Joey Wendell. I am predicting that Ji-Man Choi is going to start the season on the injured list. He may not, but the fact that, what was it, 3 or 4 days ago, they were saying 7 to 10 days, and now they're still saying 7 to 10 days. They have a lot of guys to kind of, the 26-man roster is a little small for all the guys they have, so there would be incentive, I guess you could say, to have Choi on the injured list just to give some guys some time potentially and to make things a little bit easier. Why have a guy in your opening day roster that's not healthy? That doesn't make any sense. That's taking up a spot that you can't use. So if he's not healthy, put him on the injured list and get someone else. So and then the 4 outfielders, because of Brett Phillips being on the injured list 3 or 4 weeks with what the quad injury, the quad strain, grade 1. So he'll be out until basically probably week 2 of the season. And I guess he would need a rehab after that too. So we're talking maybe for like the second homestand, the 23rd through this May 2nd, that he would maybe be back. So, and 4 outfielders is fine. And you don't need 5 outfielders. And also, Yoshi can play in left if needed, as a 5th outfielder type. So the 4 I have, Kevin Kiermaier, if he's healthy, of course. It seems like he initially started spring training with some hip tightness and now some quad tightness, but he'll return to center field, it looks like, on Friday's game. So I would imagine he'll start on opening day. Randy Arozarena, of course, Austin Meadows, Manuel Margot being your 4. And those are, versatile. Of course, Meadows can play both the corners, as can Arozarena, and Margot can play all 3 outfield positions, and of course, Yoshi can play left as well. So that brings us to 25 total. Again, you can have 26, but I wanted to leave some breathing room. They can have Choi as that 26th man if he's only a couple days away. But if not, you have the option of the guys I wrote down was Chaz Rowe, Chris Mazza, and Trevor Richards. If they can go an extra pitcher, would be the candidates. They're the first 3 out, if you will, if we're talking, March Madness, and March Madness indeed these days. So one of the tougher calls, I think, is McHugh versus Chaz Rowe, but McHugh gives length, and again, they made an investment in him, and he can also do a 1-inning spot like Rowe, but can also maybe give you 2 or 3 innings at a time. So I would say that probably gives him the nod. But yeah, tough decisions to be made. I really have no idea if they're going to have Choi on the injured list or not, but that's just something to consider, I think. Again, why have a guy on 26 men is short already. Having him on your active roster injured is you're playing with 25, so that's just something, that they're going to have to keep in mind. And it's with something like that, where it's ligament inflammation, things like that, that's not really an injury. He's been doing work on the backfields or whatever, or when they travel on the road, he stays in Port Charlotte to take ground balls or whatever the case. He's still doing stuff, but and he could play. Like if it was the World Series, he would be at first base, batting 3rd or 4th in the lineup. But it's spring training, and we have got 6-month season ahead of us, so they're taking it slow with him. So maybe they tell him to just tough it up and start, but they definitely don't need to. They're fine at that position. Again, they've got 3 guys that can play first base. So, then a couple of notes I missed from today's game. Colin McHugh pitched on the backfield. It's a 3-inning sim game. Brent Honeywell pitched a sim game as well. I don't think we're going to see him in the spring, but he'll start his season at AAA, and again, is on that short list. If I had to rank them, I would go McClanahan 1, Patino 2, and probably Honeywell 3 as far as priority if they needed to bring a guy up from Durham to start. And they've got plenty of guys who can do just that. But again, they've also got Trevor Richards who can do a spot start. Maybe Colin McHugh, although he's going to need to, through 3 innings, so he's stretched out. I mentioned Trevor Richards. They've got guys. That when you look at it that way, they've got maybe 5 guys at any given time that can give a spot start, or they just go opener and say Fleming is another guy. So that's 8 pitchers we're talking about. So I love the depth that they have right now. Teams are going to find that the war of attrition has never been so real that you cannot have enough pitchers in your system that are major league level capable. And I think the Rays are, as I mentioned earlier, one of the best setup teams to traverse what is going to be a very strange season as far as managing workloads and injuries and things along those lines. So, and then also Chris Archer will start on Friday in their game against the Red Sox. And it seems that he remains on track to start the season, probably as the 3rd starter. So, again, he could probably have another 2 starts before opening day. So he pitched an inning and a third. I think his first. He's only had 1 spring start, but he's done plenty of sim games and stuff at Port Charlotte. So he'll be fine, even if he's only able to go 4 or 5 innings. That it's like last year. It's going to be a little bit of a process. Maybe guys aren't ready to go 6 or 7 out of the gate, but that's okay. So that was the show. We got almost 2 hours, which was much more than I was expecting. But of course, anyone who's familiar with the show, they know that I can run a little long sometimes. So it looks like I have. If I can get it back, I'll definitely do that. But I took the show close sound off of my. All right, it looks like we got it back. I was gonna have to do it without it, but no. We got the show close sound. Good show. Thanks for everyone who listened in. Sorry it took so long to get the show finally on the air, from Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday. So we finally did it. We talked Bucs. We talked Rays. A little bit of Lightning. They're first place in the Central again, so they're fine for the playoffs. Couple shows at least next week, 2 to 3. I'm thinking right now. Again, stay tuned at WHBC Official on Twitter. Definitely follow that for updates on upcoming shows, either next Monday or Tuesday, and we'll be on a couple more times next week, so definitely stay tuned. Look forward to getting ready for the regular season. Have a good night.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM and Sports Radio 66. The Fan.
HBC.